Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Syncretism Society Virtual Academy. And my name is Mehmet. And in today's lesson, we're going to be delving some more into numerology, but we're going to be touching up on three major areas, and that will be the Platonic solids, Boaz and Jachin, and we're also going to touch up on the elements in the periodic table in relation to the four elements in astrology and some of the planets, and also we're going to touch up on some aspects relating to the tree of life and the Kaballah. So as you can see here, I've got a little diagram which I'm going to go into later. But what I want to do before I jump into that is give the viewers a bit of basic info on them subjects that I mentioned, because I could go straight into that and start explaining my findings of the numerology and what all the numbers add up to. But what I want to establish is just get a basic foundation of what we're going to touch up on before I go into the board, because obviously I'm aware that there might be some people watching this who are already aware of this knowledge, and also there'll be some people who are not. So basically the way I come up with this presentation was I was doing some decoding in relation to the Platonic solids and how it connects with masculine and feminine and all the elements in astrology. But like I said, before I go into that, I'm going to share my screen and we're going to touch up on the Platonic solids, and then we're going to touch up on Boaz and Jachin, and then we're going to touch upon the elements in the periodic table. So I hope you enjoy it. So let me just share my screen. Bear with me for a moment. So I've already got it ready and open here. So start here and go to view. So I'm going to go to enter full screen. Let me just move this up. So here we have 5 solid shapes, which are known as the Platonic solids. Platonic coming from the word Plato and ancient Greece. And each one of these solids corresponds with the 4 elements and in astrology, and the ether being the zodiac, or what we know as heaven. So the tetrahedron is 4-sided, the octahedron is 8-sided, the hexahedron is 6-sided, the icosahedron is 20-sided, and the dodecahedron is 12-sided. The tetrahedron corresponds with the fire element, the octahedron corresponds with air, hexahedron corresponds with earth, icosahedron corresponds with water, and dodecahedron corresponds, like I said, with the ether. And yeah, these words are Greek words: tetra meaning 4, octa meaning 8, hexa meaning 6, icosa meaning 20, and dodeca meaning 12. So if I move on, bear with me. Yeah, again, this is just a piece of art showing how they connect to the elements. As you can see, cube connects to earth, so they've got a picture of a tree. Tetrahedron connects to fire, which has a fire. Then you've got octahedron, which is the air, where they have like pictures of birds and that flying. And then you have the icosahedron, which is water, so you can see the crab, which connects to the sign of Cancer. And like I said, the dodecahedron connects with the ether, or the source of the universe. So in here you can see the sun and the stars in this little diagram. So moving on, these are some like basic fundamental things about the Platonic solids. There is a sphere, and you have to make numerous different 3-dimensional forms with these rules. You can only use straight lines. All these lines must touch the surface of the sphere. All lines must be equal length. All the shapes made have to be the same. You could make an infinite amount. However, since every square has to be of equal length, all the shapes made had to be the same. You could only produce 5 different perfect solids, and these are the 5 elements which consist of fire, which is sharp, subtle, and mobile, and it is equated to the tetrahedron. Air, which is blunt, subtle, and mobile, it is equated to the octahedron. Water, which is blunt, dense, and mobile, is equated to the icosahedron. And earth, which is joined with its opposite fire through the intermediate elements of air and water, as fire's opposite is blunt, dense, and immobile, and is equated to the hexahedron. The Aifa, spirits slash world soul, is the element which makes up the heavens, and it is equated to the dodecahedron, the most complex solid. So basically, the basic concept of the Platonic solids is that you can only make 5 solid shapes with shapes that are all equal in size. So for example, here we have 3 shapes which are made with a triangle. So you have the tetrahedron, which is made with 4 equal triangles, and then you have the octahedron, which is made of 8 equal triangles, and then you have the icosahedron, which is made of 20 equal triangles. But if you was to try and make a solid with any other number, it would not work with triangles. So the only 3 numbers you can use to make a solid shape with equal-sided triangles are 4, 6, and 20. So, excuse me, 4, 8, and 20. Beg my pardon. And this is the same with the cube. You can only make a solid with 6 equal squares. There is no other number of cubes that will make a solid. And also, this is the same with the pentagon, where you can only make 1 solid shape, which is the dodecahedron, with 12 pentagons. And also, if you do 12 times 5, as you can see, a pentagon is a 5-sided shape. It equals to the number 60, which relates to my previous video I did on how the zodiac is ruled by the number 6. So I'm just going to read this note where it says defining the Platonic solids. It says you will notice the word hedron, meaning surface, included in each Platonic solid, and leading each hedron is a word that defies a number. For example, the word tetra means 4 in tetrahedron and describes 4 faces. Plato ascribed the tetrahedron to the element of fire. Earth follows as the cube or hexahedron with 6 faces. The air is paired with the octahedron and has 8 faces, and the spirit, or the 5th element, is with the dodecahedron and hosts 12 faces, while water is the icosahedron with 20. Moving on, what I'm going to then do now is just go a bit more into each Platonic solid and explain why in a bit more depth at why they correlate to the particular elements in astrology. And we're also going to give you like the spiritual meaning of each one. So the first element is fire, which relates to the Platonic solid of the tetrahedron. And it reads here, we can connect 3 equilateral triangles together to make a point. One is more required to fill in the other side for a total of 4 triangles. This is called a tetrahedron, with tetra meaning 4 and hedron meaning sided, and it is the first perfect solid. Plato associated this solid with fire because of its pointy ends, which he explains mimic the stabbing sensation of a flame. Furthermore, it is the simplest and lightest solid. This is the element linked to the soul and creates change. The tetrahedron's spiritual meaning. The tetrahedron's key function is manifestation. It is the perfect Platonic solid that can help you create change in your life. It supports your personal power and acceptance of the old, so you can create something new. Besides, it can help you think more clearly or shine a light, element of fire and light, on some ideas. As last, the tetrahedron will also bring a natural balance between the physical and spiritual, since it's also seen as the perfect symbol for balance and stability. So moving on now, we're going to talk about the hexahedron and how that relates to the element of earth. The hexahedron, or the cube, is the shape of earth particles, as the cube is a regular solid that possesses greatest stability, being firmly rooted to its spot, and it has 6 sides. The cube's spiritual meaning. The hexahedron or the cube is its key function is grounding. It can help you to reconnect to the energies of Gaia and nature, firmly grounding you. So some even say it might activate your kundalini if you're ready for it. If you're stressed, then this platonic solid is the one that can help you the best. The cube can help you remove tension and physical stress. Besides, it provides the foundation of creativity and stability. Without this foundation, creativity wouldn't be sparked. Next, moving on to the octahedron and air. The octahedron symbolizes air according to Plato and the other Pythagoreans. The octahedron, as the name suggests, has 8 triangular sides. Air particles act as an intermediate between water particles and air particles. The octahedron's spiritual meaning. The octahedron's key function is integration. This platonic solid can help you with healing, acceptance, forgiveness, and a comparison for yourself and others. The octahedron can also help you with self-reflecting and raising vibration. This can help you with having more compassion for yourself, which in turn boosts your healing process. It will help you with expressing your creativity through your voice and helps with speaking from the heart, creating a stronger connection with your inner world and your outer world, as within, so without. The icosahedron, water. While the fire particles are tetrahedral due to being light and simple, the opposite is true for water particles, which is icosahedral for being heavy and complex. After all, it is something able to easily squash and extinguish a flame. This has 20 triangular sides. The icosahedron's spiritual meaning. The icosahedron's key function is transformation. It can assist you in many ways. For example, it enhances your creative thought process. Not only that, but it can also help you unblocking and removing emotional blockages that cut off the creative energies. It can help you learn a new way of life. Go with the flow, allowing the freedom of expression, creativity, and positive change to flow effortlessly through you. A great way to attract more abundance in your life. Besides, it will help you understand the emotions that arise. It allows you to have a clear sight of what you experience, certain emotions, and helps you react to it. It is the perfect healing tool for finding balance, harmony, especially in the areas of fertility and sexuality. And lastly, the dodecahedron, which corresponds with the ether. The dodecahedron is the most mysterious of the solids. It is by far the most difficult to construct. Accurate drawing of a regular pentagon requiring a rather elaborate application of Pythagoras' great theorem with its 12 pentagonal sides, which lead to Plato concluding that the dodecahedron is what the deity employed in tracing the plan of the universe, meaning the demiurge used this element for arranging the heavens. So again, this corresponds with the zodiac and the 12 signs. The dodecahedron's spiritual meaning. The dodecahedron's key functions are ascension, expression, divine creation of life, and the highest form of consciousness. It can help you raise your frequency and to connect with higher dimensions of your higher self. It is the perfect tool for meditation. Besides, the dodecahedron has a very high frequency. This not only helps raise your own frequency, but the frequency of the environment around you as well. So yeah, and also another interesting thing about the Platonic solid is that when you put these shapes inside a sphere, all the corners touch the inside of the sphere. So now we've established what the 5 Platonic solids are and how they correspond to the elements in astrology. What I want to now move on to is looking at the concept of Boaz and Jachin and what Boaz and Jachin is. In simple terms, it relates to polarity, so masculine, feminine, good, evil, left and right, the moon and the sun, water and earth, fire and the sky, female bride, male groom, receptive, active, earth, heaven, womb, phallus, restriction, flow, justice, and mercy. So yeah, like I said, these 2 pillars just symbolize polarity or opposition, or like a yin yang concept. And also, if you watch my previous videos I've touched up on this, but like in a more scientific way, talking about redshift, blue shift, and electricity and magnetism. So moving on, I'm just going to read a simple paragraph about what Boaz and Jachin is. Obviously, this subject, you could go into it and do a whole video on its own. It's such a complex subject, but I don't want to go too deep, because I just want to keep it brief for everyone. So duality and unity in the symbolism of the pillars. The two pillars of Jachin and Boaz can be seen to represent various polarities. Just in the fact that there are two pillars brings the dualism concept. Numerologically, the number 2 represents the first separation of unity of the one, a division and creation of the world of separate things. In fact, the concept of passing beyond the veil of the world of dualism in Hinduism, known as Maya, the illusion, to the state of divinity, unity, harmony, and oneness, is a potent way of interpreting the meaning of the pillars for initiate into the mysteries. So yeah, like as I showed on the previous slide of the two pillars of Boaz and Jachin, it's basically about duality. So one is based on the moon and feminine energy, and one is based on the sun and masculine energy. The moon would be based on Boaz, and the sun would be based on Jachin. Obviously, for people who know etymology and esoteric sciences, Jachin comes from the same word as Jacob, or the union Jack. So moving on, like I said, the physical world is always represented by red and blue, which is the colors of electricity. And red and blue is created through dielectricity, which is black light, and white light, which is magnetism. So like, yeah, moving on, I'm just going to show you like a few different paintings and symbolism in relation to Boaz and Jachin. Yeah, this is a really cool picture. I just came across it, some graffiti that someone done. So yeah, as you can see, Boaz is the blue pillar represented by the moon and blue shift energy, and Jachin is the red pillar represented by the sun. And the single eye in the middle corresponds with going back to unity. So basically, once you walk through the two pillars, you come to the number 1, and vice versa. If you're at number 1 and walk through the pillars the other way, you come to the physical reality. Again, yeah, this is just another symbolism of the sun and moon in relation to Boaz and Jachin, and the Ida and Pingala, which are the magnetic and electric pathways which go up the spinal column of the human being. So moving on, just to read a bit more about what Boaz and Jachin is about, it says the marriage of heaven and earth. And once I've read this, I'm going to explain what that means in more detail. So all of the possible dualities that the two pillars could represent, I would assert that man's desire to connect with his creator contains the most meaningful and profound symbolism to consider in relation to the two pillars of Freemasonry. It is a vertical connection that is most vital to man. Man's connection to his creator is the holiest of marriages, the union of heaven and earth, above and below, returning creation once again into its primordial perfection and state of completion, the state before the fall. The pillars that must be passed through by the initiate thus reflect the idea that the initiate must recognize this goal of his journey, the improvement, the perfection, and purification of himself, to be a vehicle for the supernal divine. So yeah, again, this is another diagram of some concepts of Boaz and Jachin and how this connects with the Jewish tree of life and the Kaballah. So as you can see here, you've got Boaz on the left with the arrow pointing downwards, and it's of the feminine aspect, and then you have Jachin on the right with the arrow pointing upwards, which is of the masculine concept. And what he was talking about in relation to unifying heaven and earth would be talking about the number 1 and the number 10. These are called the 10 Sephiroth in the Tree of Life, and each one of these symbolizes a planet. So the way it works would, number 1 would be heaven, or the ether, known as the Ein Sof, and number 10 would be earth. And all of these numbers in between are the planets. So number 9 is the moon, number 8 is Mercury, number 7 is Venus, number 6 is the sun, number 5 is Mars, number 4 is Jupiter, number 3 is Saturn, number 2 is Uranus, and number 1 relates to Neptune, the crystalline sea. And here you have a circle which relates to Pluto and comes under the name of Da'at. These also have individual names. So the top one is called Kifa, which represents the heavens, and the bottom one is Malkuth, which represents the earth. And here it says, let me just move this up again. Yeah, it says the left pillar, Boaz, is the pillar of strength, divine feminine principle, right vein, negative magnetic yin charge, and passive. The right pillar, Jachin, is the pillar of form, divine masculine principle, left brain, positive electric yang charge, active. And the central pillar is the pillar of consciousness, balance, equilibrium, neutral electromagnetic charge. And it's interesting because all the ones at the middle are like all the dualities. So you have heaven as number 1 and earth as 10. And then you have the sun as number 6 and the moon as number 9. So moving on, let me just move this out of the way so you can see the diagram. Also, in the Tree of Life and the Kaballah, there are 22 pathways, and the number 22 is very significant in esoteric studies, and especially when it comes to like the Tree of Life, the Kaballah, and the Hebrew alphabet, because there are 22 letters in the Hebrew alphabet. And if you look at the Tree of Life, there are 22 pathways. So we'll go through them quickly. So you've got 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 is somewhere, bear with me. I'll come back to it. 11, 12, 13. 10 is here, yeah, so 9, so 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, and 21. And obviously 0 would be the 22nd or the first one. So the reason I'm explaining this, because this is going to correspond with when I get into my board and I do some decoding with some numbers. And also the 22 pathways in the Jewish Tree of Life relate to the 22 major arcana in the tarot, which I'm going to read about to you right now. So major and minor arcana, quick reference sheet. A standard tarot deck has 78 cards divided into 2 groups, 22 major arcana cards and 56 minor arcana cards. In the tarot, the major arcana denote important life events, lessons, and milestones, while the minor arcana cards reflect day-to-day events. The minor arcana cards are arranged into 4 suits: swords, pentacles, wands, and cups. Each suit has a ruling element and is comprised to a specific area of life. Swords represent air and have to do with intellect and decisions. Pentacles represent earth, money, and achievement. Wands represents fire and action, and cups represent water and emotions. And yeah, it's interesting actually, because The number 56 adds up to 11, which is the two pillars of Boaz and Jachin, and 22 adds up to 4, which corresponds with the tetragrammaton, which is the 4-word name for God, which I'm going to go into explaining shortly. Yeah, these are the 22 major arcana cards in the tarot. So let me just try and zoom this in a bit. So what is tetragrammaton? Tetragrammaton is a Greek word meaning the 4-lettered name, representing the name of God in Hebrew, Yod-He-Vah-He. In metaphysics, the tetragrammaton is a mathematical equation for the essence of the universe. It has been depicted throughout history as a pentagram in which each point signifies an element: earth, wind, fire, water, and spirit, the 5 elements of God and nature. So I'm explaining all this because this will be relevant once I go into my board and decode all the numbers. Moving on, I want to go into looking at the planets and their qualities of hot and cold, and corresponding it with elements in the periodic table. So as you can see here in this diagram, they've split it into hot and cold, just like Boaz and Jachin, red and blue. So the red corresponds with masculine diurnal neutral, while the feminine corresponds with nocturnal feminine and neutral. So here on the masculine side, you have the sun, Jupiter and Mars, and on the feminine side, you have the moon, Venus, and Saturn. Obviously, the masculine sign corresponds with air and fire, and the feminine side corresponds with water and earth. Yeah, so again, this just goes into talking about the humors of each of particular planets. So when we look at the sun and Mars, they're hot and dry. When we look at Jupiter, it's hot and wet. When we look at Saturn, it's cold and dry. And when we look at the moon and Venus, it's cold and wet. And yeah, this is looking at the planets and which element they correspond to in the periodic table, which will be very relevant when I come to do my presentation on my board. So what I'm going to just do, I'm just going to go through them quickly. So the sun, which corresponds with gold, has the number of 79. Mars corresponds with iron and has the number of 26. Jupiter corresponds with tin with the number of 50. Saturn corresponds with lead, which has the number of 82. Moon corresponds with silver, which has the number of 47. Mercury corresponds with mercury and has the number of 80. And Venus corresponds with copper and has the number of 29. And again, yeah, this is just showing the symbol of each planet and which element they correspond with in the periodic table. So Moon silver, Mars iron, Mercury mercury, Jupiter tin, Venus copper, Saturn lead, and the Sun gold. So yeah, I've come to the end of my screen sharing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to unshare my screen, and now I'm going to go to my board and show you some findings that I came across while adding some numbers up, and yeah, it will bring some light to what I've been talking about. So if I stop sharing my screen, so what I'll do, I'll just bring this board forward and then hopefully we can go through it and I'll explain you what the concept of what I'm doing is. So like I've established already, the two pillars of Boaz and Jachin are symbolized by the colors red and blue. So blue being feminine, even, and corresponds with Eve, and the pillar of Boaz, masculine being male, odd, corresponding with Adam, and the pillar of Jachin. So like I've mentioned before and in my other presentations, the elements of air and fire are masculine in the zodiac, and the elements of water and earth are feminine. So what we're going to do is we're just going to add up the numbers of the Platonic solids and add up the numbers of add up the numbers of the Platonic solids, the masculine ones, and then add up the numbers of the feminine ones and bring them together. And then we're going to see what number we get out of that. So the tetrahedron, which corresponds with the element of fire, like I've already mentioned, is a four-sided shape. And air, which corresponds with octahedron, is an eight-sided shape. So when you add 4 and 8, you get the number 12. But in numerology, what we usually do is when we add up a number, if it's a double-digit number, you bring it to its digital root, which is a single number. So in this case, 4 plus 8 is 12. So 1 plus 2 equals 3. So the numerical value of the tetrahedron, fire, and the octahedron, air, comes to number 3. So then if we add up the cube and the icosahedron, so the cube corresponds with earth and has 6 sides, and the icosahedron corresponds with water and has 20 sides. So when we add up 6 and 20, we get 26, which equals 8. So then if I add the two principles together of masculine and feminine, 8 plus 3 equals 11. And like I've showed you, 11 symbolizes the 2 pillars of Boaz and Jachin. So again, even within the Platonic solids, you can see that when you add up all the numbers in relation to masculine and feminine and all the elements, it comes to the number 11, and which obviously goes to the digital root of 2. So it's talking about duality, polarity, and balance. So moving on from that, another interesting, I'll move this up so you can see it. Another interesting concept is, like I mentioned before, you can only make 5 Platonic solids. There's only 5 possible shapes that could be made by adding the same amount of equal shapes. So what I did then was when you add the 4 of tetrahedron, the 6 of the hexahedron, the 8 of the octahedron, the 20 of the icosahedron, and the 12 of the dodecahedron, you get the number 50. And like I just mentioned, when you break double-digit numbers to a digital root to get a single digit, the 50 would then equal 5. And the 5 is the quintessence, which is the dodecahedron, which is the master out of all these Platonic solids, because this represents the element of the ether and the zodiac and the heavens, basically. So moving on from that, what I thought I'd then do is have a look at the planet, a couple of the planets. I picked 2 for masculine and 2 for feminine. So in terms of the sun and so I picked 2 pairs. So in like theology, Adam and Eve is always seen as a pair, and the sun and moon is always seen as a pair. So what happens if I add before I go on to that, in the periodic table, let me start that again. In alchemy, the metal which corresponds with the planet Mars is iron, and the metal that corresponds with Venus is copper. Excuse me. So in the periodic table, iron is number 26, and Venus is number 29. So when you add these 2 together, once they're broken down, so 26 equals 8, and 29 equals 2, because 2 and 9 equals 11. And then when you break 11 down, it equals 2. So when you add Mars and Venus together, you get the number 10. But also, Mars, number 8, corresponds with Scorpio, the 8th sign, where Mars rules. And Venus, number 2, corresponds with the 2nd sign of Taurus, where Venus rules. So if you add 8 and 2, you get number 10. So it's talking about the union of Adam and Eve. And also, you could see that in the number 10, the 1 would be the phallic, and the 0 would be the uterus or the Taurus, or you could also see the 0 as the earth, and the 1 as Mount Meru in the middle of the earth. So also what I then did was I added up the numbers of the sun and the moon. So if you, the sun corresponds with gold in alchemy, which is the number of 79, broken down to a digital root is number 7. And the moon corresponds with silver, which is 47, which broken down to a digital root is number 2. So if you add a 7 and 2, you get number 9, which is the highest number. So again, it shows balance. Whenever you add up things to do with the moon and the sun, you always come to the number 9, whether it's in the periodic table or in the zodiac as well, because Cancer, which is the 4th sign ruled by the moon, and Leo, the 5th sign ruled by the moon, adding up 4 and 5 also makes 9. So moving on from that, what I then did is I know that within the periodic table, there are 4 other elements which connect with the elements of the zodiac of fire, earth, air, and water. So what connects with fire is nitrogen. What connects with earth is carbon. What connects with air is oxygen. And what connects with water is hydrogen. So then when I add all the numbers of those 4 elements, 7 plus 8 plus 6 plus 1, it equals, sorry, I'll bring my board up, it equals the number 22. And like I just showed you in my screen sharing, 22 is the amount of letters in the Hebrew alphabet. It's the 22 pathways in the tree of life. And yeah, so it's the 22 pathways of the tree of life, the 22 cards in the major arcana of the tarot as well. But also, when you add up 2 and 2, it equals 4. And like I showed you, the word for God in Hebrew is the tetragrammaton, which means the four-worded name for God. And another interesting thing as well, when you look at 22, it's the double of 11. So 11 and 11 is 22. So it also relates to the pillars of Boaz and Jachin. So yeah, this was just a presentation showing you all the connections between the numbers in relation to the Platonic solids, the planets, the elements, and the Kaballah and the Tree of Life, and many esoteric subjects. If you guys have any questions or I've not made anything clear in this particular presentation, feel free to message me personally and I can go through some stuff with you. I hope you enjoyed this presentation. Peace, love, and blessings. I'm out.